Okay. All right. Happy Friday. It is Friday, right? Happy Friday of course, as I'm going live. I'm going to try to get better with with the scheduling, get back. I used to be very good about it. And then my schedule just kind of got out of whack and I'm sort of out of the practice of it. I thought I would have things better planned out tonight. I didn't. I just got back from dropping off the other members of my family to go see Benson Boone in concert. See old Benny Boone, who's a favorite of my daughter. And the concert was a birthday gift. I chose not to attend. I wouldn't say I dislike his music, but I don't love it. Tickets are expensive. And I just think we decided that if all of us didn't need to go, then the person who probably needed to go the least was me. And that is fine and dandy with me. So that's kind of where we are with that. But I've got some hefty tomes here. Oh my gosh. From Son of Oak Game Studio, Legend in the Mist. These books are, they're heavy. They're as heavy as any 5e core book would be. They're beautiful books. I really like the art. And we're gonna get a look. I haven't looked at these yet. So as usual, and if you're not familiar, I guess it's always good to kind of reset things a little. When I do these kind of read-alongs, I do them essentially blind, which that is to say, I have not pre-read them. My opinions, one of my opinions are my own. I reached out to them to see if I could get a hold of this, and they were kind enough to send it to me. I also do have a code. I have a code. If you don't have these and you want to get them, in the description for this, you'll find a code and a link, and you can use either of those, and I think you'll get 5% off, something like that. So you get a little something, and it does help me if you're interested, only because it can, it just lets people know that, oh, hey, this is this is somebody, this is someone to be reckoned with in the World Tabletop Role Playing Game Federation. Haven't pre-read it. I was interested in this. I've heard great things about it, which is why I reached out in the first place. But these are just my notions coming into it. I haven't gone through and read anything about the book. I've had the book sitting here for about 10 days. I've just avoided looking at them. But they are very nice, the physical books. I have the PDF that I'm about to switch to, and just generally my my approach with these, I guess, short story long, and how I do things is, maybe this wasn't your experience, but it was certainly mine. Really up until maybe that's been a long time. But when I lived more, where I was seeing people on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, when we were young, we'd go to the gaming store. It might be a Saturday. I remember, and often back when I lived in Houston, there was a gaming store called Nan's. I believe it's still there. Hey, Croco. And Saturday, when I would go hang out with my friends, sometimes before we head to our local bar that we liked, shout out to Sam's Boat, used to go, so we spent way too much time at, we might shoot by Nan's, or we're doing something else before we go to that other place. We're like, hey, let's stop at Nan's. We go to, you go to Nan's, you go start perusing the shelves, and you find a book, and it looks good, you start flipping through it, and then you go to your friend, and you say, hey man, like, check this out. And you kind of, this looks cool, or this looks whatever. So when I started doing these, and I've been doing these for a while, off and on, my approach has always been to kind of look at it like that. Like, hey, this is something I think is cool. I don't go picking out just rando things. I try to pick out things I think are going to be cool. This is something that's cool. Let's check it out. Let's see, what makes it cool? And if we find something cool, what's cool about it? And just kind of chit-chat and have some fun looking at a book that we think is going to be good. Now, I used to just really read them, like back to front. And I would sometimes do these over many parts. I think the last big one I did, what was that? We did Errant. That one took 7 or 8 parts. That one's a little different because it was all on a website, but the website, it's all in modules. If you go to the card site, if it's still up for Errant, it was all in modules. We go through the modules. And I'm not a big on the marketing. I'm not someone who's trying to do things for the algorithm, but it's pretty plain to see when there's a lot of interest at the first part of, like, part 1 of, and then when you get down to part 7, very few people are still paying attention. So having done a couple of those, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. I just decided, you know what? I'm going to try to go for the highlights. Let's just kind of zoom in, at least on what I think is going, try to pick and choose that stuff to kind of do things in a little bit of a shorter amount of time, do things a little bit better way, but still not pre-reading it. Because I do think just seeing somebody's reactions, my reactions and what I think is valuable. I'm not pondering this, trying to come up with some kind of marketing speak about how amazing this is or whatever. It's really just, hey, this stuff seems cool. Let's talk about it. So with that being said, not knowing, I really don't know very much about the system. I'm not exactly sure where we're going to start. We're going to go see through. So let me switch to my Windows so we can actually see the book, because I do have the PDF. This was a swig of, what is this? Classic lemon spindrift for the working man. I also have some water. Backup. So let's see. Okay. We've got, this is the core rulebook, the hero. So there are two core rulebooks. I believe this is what I have, the hero and the narrator. I have one PDF. I don't know if I only have the PDF for the hero or if this has both parts in it. It says 498 pages. How much is the hero? That seems like a lot, even for these books. Okay, it must have both books in it, I'm guessing. So I'm looking at it, and the hero hardcover book has 236.7 pages. So that probably means that this has both books combined. So we'll just start here. And pretty artwork. I like the art style. I appreciate good art direction. I don't get on the art stuff too much because I do think that this may just be me. In fact, I think I'm probably in the minority. I like art. I think it's beautiful. I think it can help set the scene, but eventually, ultimately, I think that too much. I want to put this, because I'm not trying to say the art is useful or worthwhile. A picture's worth 1,000 words, all that stuff. But I do think that eventually, ultimately, the art kind of falls away for me. Or if it's just great art and the content's not what I want, the art's not going to save it for me. I mean, I love I guess one of my classic examples of the pictures of the creatures in the Fiend Folio were just so interesting and weird and just creepy and different. It was great. But I do think that ultimately I'm not playing the art. And when I bring Githyanki into the game, I can use that image to help describe it, especially in some of those books where they don't do great describing it because they give you the image. But it really is I really am kind of the content kind of person. But maybe I'm alone. But that it is not to say that, hey, look, having beautiful art, great art direction, layout. I mean, layout I actually think is seen as important. I think it is very important because that information design, however you use in the book, needs to be, or you hope is on point where the usability is good. Anyway, that is to say that I think the art in here is really, really good. If it weren't really, really good, it wouldn't necessarily deter me. I think some people get turned off by the art or lack thereof. Obviously, if it's distractingly just weird or off in a way, or not, weird's not the right word because sometimes the content's weird and the art should reflect that. But if it's distractingly off-putting, that's fine. That's one thing. But other than that, I'm not getting too caught up in it. But this is, I don't mind looking at this stuff because it's beautiful. Graco says the text should speak for itself. Yeah, I think so. All right, so here we have some backdrop, which I think is important. I'm guessing here that this is, as I guess is the case most now, that there is kind of a setting and rules. D&D gives you, I mean, the core books, I guess they don't really, do they go really hardcore? They don't really go hardcore into Forgotten Realms, right? I mean, I think of it more in that implicit setting. It's there, but they don't really talk about it too much, or at least they didn't used to. I don't know. And I don't know if 5.5's changed it, but I'm guessing here we're going to have more explicit setting along with rules stuff. So let's read this backdrop. Long ago, in kingdoms long forgotten, great sovereigns uncovered the secrets of thaumaturgy and labored to bring and labored to bring wonders and joy to their people. That great age ended with betrayal, greed, and unbridled wrath. Wretched power was unleashed, and perils hitherto unknown to mankind came into the world. Creatures of twilight and of malice, cunning and terror. Ancient towers and forts fell and sank in the swamps of time, and with them the secrets and answers that could ward off the darkness. Centuries passed by. The world grew cold. Folk got by, their hearts growing ever more suspicious under the threat of the shadows in the night. But now something is awakening, a seed of hope that was sequestered in the faraway mountain villages, hidden until the day it will be called upon to make whole that which was broken and restore hope to all. A call stirs deep within the hill folk to venture forth and unveil a truth long forgotten. Little do they know the journeys ahead and the perils that await. Legend in the Mist, the Rustic fantasy role-playing game. All right, so I think we can glean from this that the player characters are going to be these hill folk that have been stirred. It reminds me a bit of, is it the Wheel of Time, right, where the main characters all came from? I think it was kind of a village in the hills. Certainly it was a rustic village that produced these people who are going to shape the future. Okay, let's get more into it. Created by Amit Moshe, I'm apologies already for how I might be butchering these names. Aaron Avaram, writing and game design by Amit Moshe, Aaron Avaram, Itamar Carbian, Kelly Black, art Alejandra Penal, Marius Schuk, Mark Haretsky, Zach Causey, Manuel Serra says, that's the graphic design, art direction by Amit Moshe again, editing by Aaron Avaram, production Omar Shapira and Inbar Barzilay, cartography by Marius Zulch, Zulk, apologies again, and L'Arpenteur, operations Edward Guevara, proofreading by Marshall Opal, and then the Son of Oak team, Alba Martinez, Alfonso Campos, Kendor Wilson, Kevin Carpenter, Christoph Alejo, and Will Edwards. This is version 1.01, 2025, kickstarted. And now we've got, let's see, The Hero, Volume 1, The Hero. Yep. Oh, I guess maybe they're in two kind of separate books and it's smushed together. Because, see, this one says 231, but my book says 498 pages. Okay, well, we'll find out. I mean, I don't know how far we're going to get to anyway, but we'll see. So we've got, oh, this is cool. Kind of a little bit of, what's his name? Not Roland. Who's that guy? Prince Valiant. Not so much, not in the art style at all, but just, I don't know. I don't know why the figure here kind of reminded me of Prince Valiant. In this faraway land of forested mountains and brook-strewn valleys, there lives with his family a young deer stalker named Garen. Okay, Garen is a spirited youth, skilled with a bow and a talented deer stalker, but more than all, he is devoted to his family. And spirited youth, skilled with a bow, deer stalker, and devoted to his family are highlighted because I presume these will mean things. This they're calling a tutorial section, just so we can see it. So the game, let's tell a legend in the mist. In this game, you play a character, the hero, and tell a story about their journey. This story has a narrator, which can be you or another player, and there can be other heroes too. For now, the narrator will be this book. And then we do have a content warning for this tutorial. Cool. I'm curious. Oh, this is nice. I'm not going to read this one. I'll read the bits. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. It seems cool. I like this. It's basically written as a graphic novel with then some explanatory stuff. But basically, we get some explanation of who your hero is. So your hero has some tags. Or I guess I'll just read what they're saying. So your themes and tags. Your hero's 4 main tags have other tags attached to them. Wait, when did we find out about tags? Did they say? Oh, yes, I missed this part. So first of all, the hero. In this tutorial story, you are Garen, the Deerstalker. Your character is made out of tags. The short descriptors above highlighted in yellow, as I mentioned. To play, you'll need 2 6-sided or Legends in the Mist dice and some pen and paper or tracking cards and markers to track changes. Okay. So the tags were Spirited Youth, Skill with a Bow, Deerstalker, Devoted Family. Your hero's 4 main tags have other tags attached to them, providing more details. Together, each such set of tags is called a theme. The tags in a theme are called power tags, except for the last tag in each theme, which is a weakness tag highlighted in orange. So the tags for this guy, Garen, are Spirited Youth, and then the what are they calling them? And then so Spirited Youth is the main tag, and then within Spirited Youth, the tags are Untapped Fierceness, Inner Compass, and then a weakness called Hard-Headed. Then for Deerstalker, the tags within that are Stealthy Step, Keen Senses, and then the weakness is Loner. Skill with a Bow has Father's U Bow, Rapid Second Arrow, and then a weakness for Close Combat. And finally, Devoted to Family has Good Listener, Tough It Out, and also as the weakness, Family is my soft spot. So you end up with 4 main tags. These are the power tags, right? Each set of tags, right? So those are the 4 main tags, and then the 2 tags within that are the power tags, and then we have the weakness tags that are in orange. Okay. So that's kind of how our character is going to work, which I like because it's kind of human readable, which is, something I think is useful. Useful and easily. Oh, I lost my, what the heck? Come on, camera. What are you doing? All right, sorry about that. I didn't realize my camera. I like this camera. I really like this camera a lot, this webcam, but it just has this tendency to just go to sleep sometimes. And I don't understand why. Okay. The story. The story begins with some exposition from the narrator, which poses a quest, something at stake that propels the hero to undertake a journey. While the player, you, plays the hero, the narrator plays all non-hero or non-player characters. These could be the hero's allies, mentors, enemies, rivals, passersby. I want to kind of skip through the stuff that is your sort of generic stuff, but I do like the themes and tags. That's cool. And then, so each theme has a quest, one of your hero's goals. In this example, they're using 2 out of the 4 quests. So Spirited Youth, remember that's one of the main tags. The quest is Never Surrender to Darkness or Despair. And then the second one they're using for this one is Devoted to Family. And for that one, it's Find a Cure for their mother's illness. And the final thing you have is a backpack. And there is a temporary tag they're calling a story tag that you can have in your backpack. And the hero, what's his name? Jaren? Oops, did I go the wrong way? What is his name? Yes, Jaren, I had that right. Has a protective charm in their backpack. Okay. So now we see Jaren's card, if you will, or his character sheet, if you will. So he's got Spirited Youth. So the other thing that's nice is these themes have types, it looks like. So his personality, he's a Spirited Youth. His circumstances are he's a Deerstalker. And then his skill or trade is his skill with a bow. And then his devotion is his family. Looks good. And he's got 2 things right now. So the interesting thing with the quest is Never Surrender to Darkness or Despair does not seem to me to be a quest. I mean, yes, I presume nobody really wants to do that. A quest, right, that goal. I guess you can have a goal never to surrender, but it seems kind of, I don't know. Is it too passive for that? Croco says all the tags. Well, I think it's okay. Like, so yes, there are a bit of tags. So if you count all the tags, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these different themes, and each of those 4 themes has 4 tags. So, you have 16 tags overall, but I think because they're kind of human readable, because they've got them grouped together, I don't think it's too much. And remember, they're sort of nested. So for the skill, which is skilled with the bow, they have a couple things that are nested underneath there, but you don't necessarily have to keep those in top of mind all the time, because you probably only have to think about rapid second arrow when you're already thinking about skill with the bow. So if you imagine this, you're looking at this sheet. When you have your bow out and you're ready to use it, then you look at, oh, okay, I've got rapid second arrow, or, oh, I can leverage the fact that I'm using my father's U bow to do a thing. You don't have to necessarily have all 16 in your brain rattling around once, though. It's not I don't think it's too much of a number. Certainly, I think the fact that I imagine too with these things, and I've felt this way about other things as well, is just if you could make the language and everything I think, right, you're this character, right? You've constructed a character, and all these tags are aspects and pieces of this character. And I think it's going to be easier, I think, to remember like that than if it were numbers. Sure, after a while, you know your character's dex and con and that sort of thing, or you know some things. But it's, to me, I think this is going to feel natural because as you're building this character, I don't know if you end up rolling these out randomly or you're building them up, but you're kind of building it and you have it, and your conception of your character is going to naturally sort of have those tags in them, or it's going to be linked to those tags. So I'm thinking of Jaren and his family devotion. I'm going to think about maybe what I have in his backstory or whatever. Oh, he's a good listener, and you know he's going to tough it out for his family, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's tags, and there's a good number of them, but I think I guess I'd say that I think they're well organized. Crocker says the never-ending quest. Yes, so we're never surrendering to darkness or despair. It does seem like the war on drugs. It is definitely a never-ending quest, I would think. Okay, so now we're getting to the next kind of element of the game here in this tutorial, scenes. A scene begins when the narrator describes a specific place and happening. This is called establishing the scene. The narrator then asks the player, what do you do? Which prompts you to choose an action for your hero. Here you have some suggestions for actions, but in a real game, you can take any action you can come up with. All right, that's a good point. And so in this case, the scene is that on the old Brook Bridge, someone seems to be in distress. And then they've got some dialogue, which I'm going to skip, but then you can, these ideas for some suggestions that Jaren could do would be observing from a safe distance, slipping into the forest to try to sneak closer, you know, sneakily unnoticed like, and then, or you could just march up and talk to them, right? So they're giving you essentially 3 different options from the most passive to the most aggressive, let's say. And probably, speaking to the themes, he's got a bow, but it doesn't. One of the actions they're suggesting is not start use that rapid second shot to try to take out 2 of the people on the bridge before they know what's hit them. All right, it's probably not that kind of game. Now we get to the next part of this tutorial, which is actions and outcomes. Every hero action has an outcome, success, and we have some special symbols here, which may be if you're using their dice, maybe, I'm not sure. So success looks like a gold star or cross. A negative consequence looks like a skull, and then both, and you have a result that's a split skull and star. So, you know, essentially your success, you know, failure, success, failure, or a mixed success. After you describe your action, the narrator chooses one of three ways to arrive at the outcome: simple, quick, or detailed. Oh, this is interesting. So I guess it seems like as the narrator, you can kind of decide whether we're going to, I'm guessing this is how far into the weeds into this particular issue you're going to get. So for the simple outcome, the narrator simply tells you what happened based on the scenario, your hero's tags, and the details of the characters involved. The narrator can also give you new tags, good or bad, as a success or a consequence. This method is used to keep the story going without using the dice. So, okay. So here's what the examples that they have. So this is interesting too, right? Because in your normal game, what you would do is there'd be some dice rolled. Not always. Obviously, if one plan of action, I could see observing from a safe distance. Maybe you make a roll to see if they heard you or saw you coming before you ducked into the trees, whatever. But there's a good chance, there's a good chance that you can kind of get away with that one. Sneaking closer is maybe a little bit riskier. And then, of course, walking straight up. Certainly in an OSR type game, reactions, how far away are you when they spot you, all that kind of stuff. Here they're saying at least one, and not that you probably can't do that, but if you don't want to go into the weeds there, and obviously it's going to depend on how the context and everything else, you can instead just make a ruling based on what you know of the character, of the all the stuff. Which I guess is, you know, you can always do kind of anyway, but it's probably freeing to have. I mean, some people are probably going to dislike this, and some people are going to embrace it. But you have the choice. You don't have to do it this way, but you can. So for these 3 examples that they gave, There is, so if they, if your Jaren chose to observe from a distance, you can, there's, I guess they're giving good and bad. So the good option is you remain at a safe distance watching the ruffians harass the traveling woman. To judge by their clubs, they appear to be ill-intending bandits. That's the positive one, or I guess the success. The consequence one is you contemplate walking away, but going off the path will waste precious time. What more, you feel a pang of remorse leaving the traveler to fend for herself, and you add that tag to your notes. So you gained a pang of remorse, which, what does it mean? Not sure. If you chose to slip into the forest and sneak closer unnoticed, the positive outcome might be that a deer stalker of stealthy step, right, which is your tags, you have no difficulty creeping up closer unnoticed, and you settle in a good hiding spot, which is also now seems like a tag, and it is, so you get that tag. However, and then the bad consequence would be, however, while you sneak, the hooded figures, bandits no doubt, beset the traveler, a peddler, and threaten her to surrender her goods. And then marching over to speak to them, the positive version is you walk proudly toward the band, introducing yourself. They turn from the peddler to face you. The negative result is, but they will not yield the peddler. Instead, they threaten you as well. So, okay. But I guess the thing is here, I guess this is a tutorial, and I think we're meant to pick the one we want. So I guess we can either pick the positive or the negative one. I might not. I guess what I would have liked out of the example, maybe the intent would have been to tell me as the book narrator, instead of giving me both the good and the bad one. I think part of this is I want to see a run through of, well, what is your judgment? If I chose to observe from a distance, which one of those options or the mixed one would you get? I mean, a lot of them, I kind of feel like if I was going to do this just myself, I'd want there to be kind of a mix. Except for maybe the marching over to speak, or maybe even them. I'm not sure. Only because you have an event that's in motion. They're clearly threatening this person, and in all these situations, you're not putting an immediate stop to it. So that is going to progress in some way while you're doing something. I guess if they're marching over to them, maybe that stops them from escalating it, maybe because they're going to turn and face you. But the other one, certainly, what you're doing as a player is you're sort of playing for time, right? You're trying to get a better vantage, but you're spending time to do that. And what are they doing while you're spending time? But I think I would have liked to just say, hey, not necessarily to say which one of these is better than the other, but these are kind of give me the whole full Monty. But instead, they gave us choices. But that's fine. So the next page says, a new round begins. With your action and its consequences resolved, the narrator describes the scene again, reestablishing what's going on. This starts a new turn of the established action consequences cycle, which repeats throughout the game. Or maybe it is that we're always supposed to get these. I mean, which I understand, but just here it says every hero's action has an outcome, success, negative consequences, or both. So I guess they're saying with these, there's both a success and a negative consequence, which that would make sense to me too. But I don't know if that gave me quite the decisive look at how things are supposed to run that I might have liked. But I might just be either reading too much into it or not reading enough into it. Threats. When the narrator establishes that something suspicious or dangerous is happening, it's called a threat. Threat can later manifest into consequences, so use your actions wisely to avoid or address threats. The ruffians raise their clubs over the peddlers' heads. Things are looking dire. All right, so they're threatening. Whoops. They are threatening you. Now, what do you do? Wait, did these have different page numbers? Oh, no, all those went to the same page. Okay, so now we have 3 more suggested actions. This is kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure. One is, I rally the peddler to help me fight off the bandits. Yeah, peddler! The other one is, I rush to the rescue, standing between the bandits and the peddler. Or, I let fly a warning shot to scare them away. All right, so now we have different pages, like a real choose-your-own-adventure. We have different pages. So first they did the simple outcome, which was no dice. We're just going to read the sitch. Second way to do things is the quick outcome. This time we're going to get dice. Quick outcome is used when the narrator wants a quick yes/no answer to what happens next. Start by invoking, i.e. naming the tags that help or hinder your action. For each helpful tag, your action gains 1 power. For each hindering tag, your action loses 1 power. Tags that could affect your action include your hero tags, but also your adversaries or the environment tags. The narrator will tell you if there are other tags that affect your action. So power is a number that represents how likely your action is to succeed and how effective it is. So you have some number, right? So basically you're building up your positive, your bonus, dice bonus, or dice, I guess, malice, right? So Croco says that the example just has both positive and negative consequences, but you don't need both generally, they think. Yeah, I just think, I guess for clarity, so I could see how it worked, I would have liked if they would have picked one, because giving me both kind of, on the one hand, it does show how you should be thinking of these things, but the second hand, it doesn't quite give me that simple outcome of here's what I think the situation is we're going to go for, because you get both. And I kind of would have, I guess maybe I would have preferred it if it had those two both and then said something like, I think in this case, it should have been the positive, the negative, or the mixed. Just to kind of lay out, oh, okay, right? That's how I should be thinking about it. When somebody does it, I can think about what's the positive way this should work? What's the negative? Is there enough going on that this should be the positive? Is there enough going against it? It should be just the consequence, or should it be both? I just would have liked that little extra bit just to kind of, I just feel like for a tutorial where it's doing this kind of choose your own adventure kind of thing, to do that. But I can appreciate that it's giving you like, here's how I could look at it positively, and here's how I could look at it more negatively. All right, so we have those dice. We have our bonuses, malices, or both, and then you're going to roll. If you get 10 or more, the action succeeds without consequence. But there is a parenthetical. If you ignored a threat, you may still suffer consequences. 7 to 9, your action succeeds, but you take consequences. That's the mixed. And 6 or less, it fails and you take the consequences. So we're looking at basically, this is kind of your powered by the apocalypse. Are those, I think that's kind of the exact thing, right? 2d6 roll, 10 plus success, 7 to 9 mixed. I think that's pretty much classic powered by the apocalypse. Somebody let me know if they changed the numbers, but that seems right. Or it looks about the same to me. So powers are things that could help. He's a spirited youth with untapped fierceness. So he's got two power tags. If Garen feels the pang and remorse, that actually could be a positive. And then those are the positives. Those things can help. But what could hinder is Garen in a good hiding spot. Pleading the peddler to fight from a position of safety is not very convincing, reduced by 1. Now, it does seem like, unlike I want to say a lot of the 2d6 type systems, try to really cap the modifiers you can put on it, because it really can, if you look at, say, reaction roll, a +2 to reaction roll, it swings things quite a bit. Because remember, your average on 2d6 is going to be, 7, right? 3.5 plus 3.5. So when you just adding 2 to that can swing that a lot. And I guess it seems like that's not a concern, or maybe the idea would be that there will tend to be some balancing negative factors to keep it in balance. Because right for this one, using that first one, you have spirited youth, untapped fierceness. If you have the pang and remorse, that's already +3. It's pretty good. Okay. So now you roll some dice. So the first option, rallying the peddler. If you scored a success, the peddler jumps to her feet and fists up. You recruited the peddler, so you gain a tag, which is peddler. If you rolled a 9 to 7, you're going to get the peddler jumping their feet, but also the negative consequence. And the negative consequence is the bandits turn to face you, and now they're angry, which also seems to be a tag. Consequences often include tags that could be bad for your hero and good for your opponents. Keep track of the bandits' tags separately from yours. So not only have to fight the bandits, but the bandits are pissed. Okay. Now, let's see. So now we have option 2, which was they're rushing. They stand between the peddler and the bandits. So then they give the rundown again of how the power could work, you know, using your spirited youth, untapped fierceness, maybe that pang of remorse. Also, if you were in the good hiding spot and did that, maybe it would help you kind of a little bit of an ambush. And then there's not really much to hinder because there are really no tags, negative tags in play yet. So if you rolled a 10 plus, then you reach the peddler in time to protect her from the bandits standing in their way. You recruited the peddler, and so you gain the tag peddler. However, your action did not address the threat posed by the bandit. It just gave him a new target. You also suffer the consequences regardless of your success. So you jumped in front of the peddler, but you didn't address the threat. How did the... All right, I'm just going back. So you rally the peddler to help fight off. That does address the threat, but you standing in front of the peddler does not address the threat. Okay, I'm not sure. Any case, I don't want to get too caught up in this because it's only the tutorial. All right, so the consequence is you're hit with a blow of one of the bandits' clubs, which takes the wind out of your sails. So now you've got, oh, so I see. So this one takes away your untapped fierceness, and you can't use it till you recover it. So you jump in front of the peddler, you're like, haha, you got to deal with me, fools, and a bandit clubs you, and then now you've lost that power. You've lost access to your untapped fierceness. You have been defiercified. And then the last option was that you let a warning shot. You fly a warning. You let fly a warning shot to try to scare them. Again, the tags: spirited youth, untapped fierceness, also skill with a bow, father's U-bow, and then if you're in the good hiding spot, all the better. But then the narrator lets you know these bandits are hardened. This is not their first rodeo. And then if you rolled a success on this one of the bandits lets out a cry of terror and flees down the hill. So they're down one bandit. And then on the negative side, you clip a bandit's ear with your arrow, but now they get angry. So now, again, they got angry bandits. And then the next bit is the bandits advance towards you, ready to tackle you down and dish out a beating. And now your three options are try to talk them out of it. Hey now, fellas, let's not get too hasty here. Or you could try to shoot arrows to pin or hobble them so that you and the peddler can flee. Or you can go to wound them. Ooh, well, now we're getting into it. So now at this point, so we've gone through, and this is kind of cool. I don't know if this is always how it's supposed to work, but going from the simple to the quick to now we're in the detailed vision. Croco says peddler added to inventory. Yes, the peddler. You are now a peddler. You are now an honorary peddler. Okay. Now we're in the detail. Count your power, roll the dice as they did before. If you succeed, you're able to spend your power on various effects, adding or removing tags from yourself and other characters. So, let's see. So the most common effect is giving a status. A status is a special tag that has a tier from 1 to 6, measuring its intensity. A status always describes a temporary condition, never an item or a thing. It is marked with a green highlight. Creating a status costs 1 power per tier. In other words, the tier of the status you will give the bandits is the same as the power of your action. Statuses affect your actions. You add to your power the tier of your most helpful status in the situation and subtract the tier of the most hindering status. All right, hold on. Statuses affect your actions. So if you have a positive status, that adds. Okay, so positive adds, negative take away. All right. And they give you examples showing an example status, which would be afraid, and a little X to show that it's a tier 3 fear. And then now about these tags. Tags you gain during the story expire when they are no longer true or make sense. Scratch out good hiding spot or pang of remorse if you had them. They expired as soon as you intervene on behalf of the peddler. Your power tags never expire, but they can be temporarily scratched out, becoming unavailable. All right. So that's interesting, right? So you gained, so you not only did you use those power tags to add to your roll. So let's see if we did the warning shot, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, say 6, and then you lose 1. So 5 power on that. If you succeed, that's a 5. That's a tier 5 status that you can put on there, that seems pretty good. I don't know. The highest tier they have on these is 6. So that seems pretty great, obviously, if you succeed. But I'm guessing that enemies can also do the same to you, maybe. All right, so now we get to the examples that try to talk them out of it. You can give the bandits the convinced status with a tier equal to the power you rolled. If you didn't have any power, or you had negative, I guess, you get a tier 1. So you can always add a status, even if you had 0, or because you could have negative power also. Let's see. If you... Oh, okay. So this is interesting. So I guess the bandits don't react on their own. So everything... I guess this is very powered by... And I hadn't really looked up, if this was based on a particular system. So this feels, I guess, very powered by the apocalypse, of which I have very little experience myself. I've read the book ages ago. I actually was all set to playing a game also ages ago, and they got canceled. as especially online games tend to be, so I never actually got to really play it. But it works similarly in that adversaries don't tend to be active. Everything is kind of reactive to what the players are doing. So in this case, as I was saying, maybe the bandits could attack and do this. No, instead what's going to happen is, let's say you're using the try to talk them out of it. If you succeed, you can apply a status which is convinced to the bandits. However, if you fail, they're going to apply a status stunned to you. And I'm curious where they get the numbers for, because they say if you fail, the bandits give you stunned, a 2 tier of stunned. And I'm curious where that number comes from. But, excuse me. And of course, if he's stunned, that's going to make things more difficult. Okay. Now, if they're going to try to shoot to hobble, if you succeed, you can give them the hobbling status, and they're going to stun you. Again, it seems like stunning is going to happen a lot. And then if you shoot to wound, you can give them the wounded status, or they can again give you the stunned status. But what is the wounded status? So it says here that you give the bandits a wounded status with a tier equal to the power you rolled. Oh, that's it. Okay. So now we have some more on taking a status. Ouch, your hero has taken a negative status. Luckily, when your hero suffers some consequences, the narrator may allow you to take a reaction to lessen the harm. Let's try this now with the status you just received. Lessen the blow. You now roll a reaction. Count your power and roll the dice. If you succeed, you spend power to reduce the negative effects. Every point of power you rolled with reduces the tier of the status by 1. If you rolled 10 plus, you get 1 extra point of power with which to lessen the status. If you get 6 or less, you take the status as it is without any further consequences. So basically, you got stunned. You can make a roll, add together any power you think you have that will help with that. And if you succeed, whatever power you use, can reduce that stun. So in this case, in their example, their stun got reduced from 2 to 1. Let's see. And then we have another part. Statuses affect your actions. When a status supports an action, add its tier. If it hinders, takes away. But only the highest positive status and the highest negative status are counted. All other statuses are ignored, even if they're relevant. All right, so you only have to deal with the highest and lowest. So if you have a bunch, it's the highest and lowest that don't want to be the ones that affect you. Finally, overcoming a challenge. This group of bandits is a single challenge, something that stands in your way that must be overcome through action. Heroes in many challenges have a limit, how much they can take of a certain status, a number between 1 and 6. When they receive a status of that tier or higher, they are overcome. Overcome heroes cannot act and lose control of the scene, while overcome challenges cease to pose a threat. Limits are highlighted in red. Heroes are overcome at tier 5. If Garen takes a stunned 5 status, for example, he passes out and cannot continue to fight. If he takes convinced 5, he stops arguing and aligns himself with whoever convinced him. All right, so that's pretty interesting. because you could potentially have a situation that you're convinced, even though you as the player, right? It's an interesting, I don't know what we would say, kind of a little player agency tomfoolery, not in a bad way necessarily, but you're in a situation where you as a player believes your character vehemently is against something, but they lose a series of these roles, these adjudications, and you're going through a scenario, and so you end up actually being convinced the other way, which then you have to play. You have to play through. Oh, the bandits convinced me that robbing the peddler is the right thing to do. Okay, I guess I'm going with it, right? And that's kind of an interesting approach. And it's a thing that a lot of games would not do, right? That whole kind of, you can't never take away my agency, especially now. A lot of games really try to do away with those things where they're kind of telling the player character what they have to do. You can't charm, never charm them because, or paralyze them. I mean, there are many different ways of doing agency, but the kind of idea of almost in a sense you're charmed. Got to do this other thing. Of course, the player can decide how they're going to do it. So maybe they could try to twist it a bit, but it's an interesting approach. And so then we have a challenge limit for the victory. The bandits challenge has the following limits. If you made one of them run away with a warning shot, reduce all of them by 1. So if you convince them it's a challenge 3, if you hobble them, it's a challenge 4. Or wound them, it's also a challenge 4. And heroes don't always know a challenge's limits. Sometimes action must be taken to discover what they are. I mean, I would kind of say, why would they ever know the limits? I wouldn't want to give them the limits. I mean, maybe for this tutorial, obviously kind of situation, but otherwise, I don't think I'd want to give them the limits. I think that I would want that to be something that they need to discover. I'm curious what circumstances would be, unless it's just the kind of a game style thing where you're going to tell them which things they need to do what. Okay, if you manage to give them any of these statuses that these tiers are higher, you overcome them. And then if you overcame the bandits, we get to turn to page 30. And then you can kind of continue. Usually one action isn't enough to overcome a challenge, and one consequence isn't enough to defeat a hero. Statuses need to be applied several times and stacked to reach the limit. When a status is first taken, such as Stunned 2, mark it on a tracking card. If a similar status taken, Stunned 4, mark its tier on the same card. The tier of the status is the highest marked box. If a box is already marked, taking Stunned 2 again, mark the next empty box to the right. The next Stunned 2 would take it to Stunned 5. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so here's how it works. You mark in the first one X and 2. Then you mark one at 4. If they take 2 again, you mark at 3. And then the next Stunned 2. Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, because I was just thinking they're just going to add it up. Well, you took Stunned 2 and you take Stunned 4, so you're at Stunned 6, but that's not how you're doing it. You're filling in the box that you got. But if that box is filled, you fill the next higher one. So the first time you take Stunned 2, you fill in the box at 2. When you take Stunned 4, you fill in the box at 4. So what that means is if you were to have gotten Stunned 4 again, you would have filled in Stunned 5 and you'd be out. But if you took Stunned 1, 2, or 3, those boxes are yet unfilled. So you actually keep going. So it's not quite as simple as just doing the addition. There's a little bit of, you can try to, I don't know if push your luck is the right term, but it's kind of an interesting way of doing it. So you have a little bit more going on than just say adding those numbers together. So if the bandits were wounded, they flee before you, leaving a trail of blood behind them. If they were convinced, the bandits let you go and you hope not to cross paths with them again. If the bandits were hobbled, you take advantage of their disoriented and tangled state to flee. And if you were stunned, come to for a while with a terrible headache, only to discover your personal effects have been stolen. Womp womp. So this is basically the wrapping up of the scene. The scene ends when your hero overcomes the scene's challenges or when they overcome your hero. Either way, it's time to move on with the story. At the end of the scene, the end of a scene, some statuses expire and others remain, at the narrator's discretion. If you had any stun status at the end of the scene, replace it with headache too. If you've been defeated and robbed by the bandits, scratch out Father's Yew bow. Your entire skilled with a bow theme becomes useless, so scratch that and rapid second arrow too until you find a new bow. Oh man, that's tough. I mean, it's cool and it makes sense, but that's rough. I'd be mad if I lost my father's yew bow, I can tell you. Okay, so now we get this. We get a little epilogue with the peddler with some further actions. You can make small talk, ask the peddler if she has anything useful, or also ask the peddlers to treat their headache. And now we have a note, which we notice about the peddler, allies or tags too. If you haven't done so yet, add peddler to your backpack. What? Let's make it into a temporary theme and add also the tags resourceful and then a negative tag oddball. If you two weren't robbed, that is, if you're not defeated by the bandits, add also bag of curiosities to this theme. When you take action as your allies, or when they help your actions directly, use their tags as if they were your hero's tags. Okay, so that's kind of a clever way to have your allies, as they're basically more tags that you can use. The idea of putting the peddler in your backpack is kind of funny. But I think they mean the backpack is kind of a metaphorical backpack. Croco says, I saved you. Get in the backpack. Yeah. Yes, indeed. All right, so then they're saying, so some actions, okay, so now there's the actions that can give positive statuses. You can take actions to give yourself or your allies new positive statuses. This time, use a detailed outcome. If you are successful, you can spend your power to give a status. Each tier costs 1 point of power, same as before. So you can have some conversation. So this one is, you want to do small talk. So for Jaren doing small talk, he can use his good listener and the peddler. Oh, that's interesting. So that fact that you're talking to the peddler, I guess the peddler and the good listener become part of this one power roll. But then you do have some potential hindrances, loner and oddball. Basically, they cancel each other out. Whoops. Why do I keep scrolling the wrong way? Okay. So if this succeeds, you find common ground with Erna, which is the name of the peddler. Meeting a kind person gives you some encouragement. Give yourself hopeful. Your power is 0 or less. You still get 1 power to spend. And then if it's mixed, you get that, but you also get the negative part, which is after a while, you both go silent. Erna's company suddenly reminds you of your mother and you begin to fret. Take a headache. Oh no, you cannot lessen this consequence. Uh-oh. My head hurts. Whoops. Okay. And then you can also, why do I keep going that way? I don't know what I'm doing with my mouse or what that I keep accidentally scrolling. Actions can also create new tags. This time they're asking the peddler if they have anything useful. You make the roll. If you succeed, she's got a climbing pick or a pretty opal. If she fails, she can't find anything in the bag, so you lose access to the bag of curiosities. And then if you ask the peddler to stop your headache, this is a recovery action. You've got access to tonic and tough it out. If you succeed, you reduce the headache. If you succeed with a consequence, you lose the tonic. And if you lose, you get you lose your headache, but you also lose the tonic. If you failed, you lose the tonic, but it doesn't actually help you. And now we've got some time tracking, or let's see, hold on, what do they call it? So this is called status tracking progress. The narrator made a new threat, the passage of time. From now on, when you take consequences as a result of an action or because you ignored this threat, the narrator may apply a time passes 1 status to indicate you've wasted precious time. When this happens for the first time, take a tracking card and note the status on it following the stacking rules. Every time you get the status, you'll check another box to the right. This status is counted against a limit, sunset 6. When this limit is reached, something dramatic happens. In this case, the sun will have set and it may be too late for Jaren to help his mother. So watch this tracker. Okay, that's a cool way of doing time. That's very open, right? These are very open, player-facing systems. All right. So now we got some more. Ooh, what's this? They meet a stranger who's got, it's like a sheep, a ram person. The stranger casts off its cloak, revealing a monstrous, unearthly creature that instantly towers over Jaren. I am but a humble wanderer between the trees, a king under the stars, and I can help you find what you seek for a price. All right, and now what do? I must discover more about this creature. I must discover more about this creature, says Jaren to himself. Now you can have a discovery action. Again, you're going to be adding up your powers. If you have a headache, that's going to hurt. But the creature is Mysterious 1. That makes it hard to identify. You roll, and then if you succeed, you get to spend up to 3 power and read 1 paragraph for each. Oh, okay, that's cool. So if you basically 3 things, each one you get for 1 power. So assuming you got all 3, you get a what is this creature? You believe this to be one of the creatures of Twilight. Treacherous monsters that prey on travelers who stray too far from the trail. It is not to be trusted. I mean, that's kind of obvious, right? I mean, it's a giant goat or ram-headed fellow. What does it want? It truly wants to make a trade, but you're wary of what it might cost you. You sense it wants something much more than mere earthly possessions. Then finally, does it have a weakness? Or does it have weaknesses? This creature is far too big and monstrous to fight head-on, and there's no telling what foul sorcery it can conjure. But it seems to have a penchant for trades. Maybe you can outsmart it. And if you failed, the creature's words pierce your heart. Does it have the cure? You begin to believe it. And you gain Tempted 4. Bom, bom, bom. But you can try to lessen the consequence. I think it, or do you get Tempted 4 regardless? No, it's got to be I think it's got to be just on the negative consequence. So I think we've seen how this works. I don't want to get too far into it, but it's a really cool, the idea of doing this as a story is pretty fascinating. Just a really interesting way to do it. But if I keep reading through all of that, well, it would take me too long to get to all of this. All right. I'm going to skip over the intro stuff. What do you need? What do you got? Oh, I like that they have the tracking cards. That's nice. Principles of good role-playing. Play for the story. Be the character's greatest fan. Play fair and collaborate. Make this game your own. That's good. Coming from other RPGs, this is a narrative game. It's built to support better storytelling by getting out of the way. Conflicts are more than just fights, and damage is more than just hit points. Initiative is dramatic, not numeric. Roleplay choices can transform your character sheet. There are no stats. There's only Zool, aka tags. There's only one kind of dice roll in this game, one roll to rule them all, and it's powered by tags. The outcome of your actions and your adversary's actions is also expressed with tags. The narrator and the players decide which tags are relevant or irrelevant for any given action, and all dice rolls are made by the players. All right, there you go. So they split it up, right? So Volume 1's all the hero stuff. Volume 2 is all the narrator stuff. So we start by choosing a frame of play. That's the setting and the nature of the stories. You'll tell. Legends of the Mist is primarily looking at rustic fantasy, which it will explain, because I'm kind of curious. I don't know that I've heard the term before. I think I have, but still curious what they think it is. Okay, then you'll create heroes and fellowship. Setting up a game, and then play, right? And then play a session. All right. Whoops. All right, so what exactly is rustic fantasy? While you can use this game to play any fantasy story, Legend in the Mist is first and foremost a game of rustic fantasy. But what does that mean? It's about the simple little things. It's about, I'm not going to read I'm just going to read the headers. It's about small heroes from out-of-the-way places who discover their great destinies or not. It's about small heroes faced with great perils, often beyond their power or understanding. It's about journeys through the countryside and wilderness and living close to nature. Ultimately, rustic fantasy is about evoking that tender feeling of the legendary. Okay, I think that gives us a good starting point. Our little corner of the world. Your story could be centered entirely around the minute happenings of a small village, community, or region, or the world at large, with the world at large as a mere background. The stakes are always low, at least to the eyes of an outsider, but for the heroes, the runaway sheep of the neighbor or absent-mindedness curse placed by the old grump on the village smith pose serious concerns. Plots begin rather small and seemingly inconsequential, but in time they can spiral into the creepy, dangerous, or heroic. We have some bullet points. Absence of might, no magic or everyday practical magic, wholesome rewards, detail-oriented, light-hearted, local cast, short-range travel. The heroes might be tavern buddies, protectors against the dark. And then, an epic journey. Are these the things I said here? No. Your story could be centered around a journey, undertaken as part of a greater quest or purpose. You might have a mixed bag of power levels, a mixed bag of commitment, long journeys, supplies matter, grand and lofty magic, an alternating cast, and high adventure. The heroes might be a sworn fellowship or a traveling band. So basically giving all these different types. So you can have basically saying, look, if you want to just do, a cozy adventure, cozy adventures in just in a little local place, you can do that. If you want to go on a journey, Croco says he prefers rusted fantasy. Is that when the rust monster gets in? So you can basically play it, and you're kind of playing in a little locality. You can also go on a big journey. You can get into grit and politics or dungeon crawl. And then we get kind of the nutshell version of how to play. I feel like the reading through that gave us kind of the how to play stuff. It's pretty fascinating because I keep wanting to talk about how my game kind of compares and contrasts to this, because in some ways my game has very similar things, and in other ways it's I guess my game's more conventionally in the kind of D&D OSR space. But I also rely, I don't call them tags, but I also rely kind of on a tagging sort of thing. I don't have attributes in my game either, but I do things a little bit differently. So it's kind of neat to see what they've done and just thinking in my brain what I've done. But I think we got a good sense of how this. Yes, I don't think there's any doubt, as Croco mentions, a fellowship for a ring, perhaps. The epic journeys seem to be like, hey, if you want to do a Lord of the Rings type game, or like at least from the fellowship perspective, this will work. Now we get into the makings of a hero. Hero and fellowship creation. A hero's details are recorded on cards. A hero card for their general details, 4 theme cards for their 4 main aspects, and then tracking cards for their conditions and statuses. So we got Jaren, and we see him again, right? Jaren, he's got a companion named Erna. He's devoted to family. I'm not going to read through this right because we already saw this. So we got that stuff. So you have theme cards. A theme is built around a tag that describes a major aspect of a hero, such as their temperament, backstory, or abilities, such as always attentive, goat herder of Milkrest, or gifted archer. Each theme has additional tags representing its title tag's minor, related, or secondary aspects. Okay. So each of a hero's themes has a type, which gives general guidance to its nature and how it develops. There are 20 theme types divided into 3 might categories, which are explained later. So you have origin themes, adventure themes, and greatness themes. 3 theme types could fit any of these categories depending on what they describe: companion, magic, and possessions. Your hero can have any mix of themes of different types and from all 3 categories. Your choice of themes tells us what kind of hero they are and their place in the world. All right, so let's see. We have might. In some aspects of their life, your hero is mighty. When using themes with might, your hero is able to take grander actions and expect greater results. But they also find themselves preoccupied with bigger concerns and shouldering greater responsibilities. If you have mostly origin themes, you are humble, rather unimportant individual who is often cast against stronger forces in a dangerous world. Your might is often in your heart, or on a personal level, or in what is close to the ground, intimate, or underhanded. Hold on, I think. So wait a minute. We have. Where's 3? Is this looking at that sheet? Where are we getting these numbers from? Oh, 3. So A, B, C, D. 1, 2. I see 3. Oh, these are the themes, I guess. I see. And we have a sidebar. Your story told through themes. Imagine a hero that begins as a miner who is taught to keep their head down and avoid making trouble. They spurn this norm and lead a revolt in the mines, replacing their mines theme with a revolt leader theme, learning warfare and politics. Later, they may choose to return to the simple life of a miner again, or evolve to become the leader of a realm-wide rebellion. Okay, so basically your themes, and I think I do appreciate that the themes are. It seems like they're not malleable. I mean, they'll change over time. You're not, you most often, I think, in a lot of times with the backstory type stuff, is the backstory you kind of do and it's static and stay. Where here they're saying no, your themes can come and go. You start as a miner, you can kind of lose the miner to become the revolt leader. You can go back, you can evolve over time. Okay, when using if you have mostly if you have mostly adventure themes, you're heroic or notable individual. If you have mostly greatness themes, you are a force that can shape realms and the destinies of many. So these are on each of these themes, I guess. One is what? One is the name of the theme, the tag, right? 2 is the type of theme, right? So it's personality. And then 3 are these I see. So I think these, I guess it's kind of clear. I wish it could be a little more clear, but on the card. So basically why I'm going back and forth is on each of these cards, there are some symbols on the top of the card and they've circled one. I guess you circle one of these. So it looks like on all of Jaren's theme cards, they circled the same aspect, which I guess is all might. Oh no, they're all origin themes. Never mind. Those are origin themes, right? So origin, I see. And then other ones can be adventure and other ones can be greatness. Okay. In some aspects of your life, your hero is mighty. When using themes with might, but I don't understand. Oh, the might is just the, okay. I guess that's where I guess where I was confused. All right, so the might refers to being either origin, adventure, or greatness. Oh, and you can also improve themes. When you invoke a weakness tag or reflect during a camp scene, mark improve. When the theme's third improve is marked, it gains an improvement, which usually means you can add a new tag to it. That's cool. Again, like my game, I don't have this. This made me think like, oh man, I might need to look at it or something like this. But it's funny because I have this similar thing in that your sort of weaknesses you can use. I leave the weaknesses to players to use that they can get something out of, and this kind of has something similar, which is funny. All right. Each theme includes a quest, a goal, a belief, or personal journey of your hero that is related to this theme. Following or abandoning a theme's quest can lead to a significant change, the replacement of the theme. Whenever you mark a significant victory or success in your theme's quest, mark milestone. After the third one, the theme evolves into a new one, developing further. Whenever you ignore the theme's quest or act against it, mark abandon. After the third one, an aspect of you is lost, making room for a new one to develop. After a theme is replaced, you gain promise, representing how your hero grows overall. Once you've marked promise 5 times, you gain access to unique options that can truly transform your hero. So this is cool. So this is how you're, in a sense, you're advancing, but you're changing. Some of it, there's definitely advancement as you're unlocking new things and with that promises, but it's also this kind of evolution, which I can dig. I think it's cool. Oops, I did it again. Okay, so we have some example tags. I'm not going to read through all these, but we've got power tags. We talked about weakness tags. We already saw. The backpack is not a literal backpack, a metaphorical backpack for temporary tags and things of that nature. You might have to scratch out some tags when you lose them, either permanently or temporarily. And here we have some ways of creating heroes. Just write it down or pick a trope or answer some theme book questions. While you're creating a hero, remember the following. Your power tag should be useful. Your weakness tag should be limiting. Your tags, especially the title of each theme, should match the might of their theme. So basically, if it's your origin, it should match your origin. If it's an adventure, it should match adventure. Or if it's, what was the other one? Greatness? Yeah, look at that. I got them right. Origin, adventure, or greatness. A tag. Oh, and here it is. Let's see. Yep, I got that. Okay, your quest should be clear. Most quests fall into one or more of these categories. Your wish, your truth, your home, your question. Ask yourself, what could be a milestone for this quest, and what kind of actions will be considered abandoning this quest? You and the narrator must have an understanding about your tags and quests, and then you should know which tags are broad and which are specific. And then we've got some theme type lists. So for origins, you can have circumstance, devotion, past, people, personality, skill or trade, or trait. For adventure, can be duty, influence, knowledge, prodigious ability, relic, or uncanny being. And then greatness, destiny, dominion, mastery, or monstrosity. And then ones that could be of multiple mights. These could be companions, magic, or possessions. And then we got some kits. List of all theme kits. I'm going to skip these, right? Right. But there's a note here on making themes magical. While the magic theme type is the most direct way to represent magical abilities, you can incorporate magical elements to any theme or tag, depending on your group's story. For example, devotion can be used to represent simple faith-related magic. People can be used for magic that is inherent to your ancestry or culture. And trait can be used for a simple yet unique magical ability. Well, there you go. And now we have some tropes for village folk. You know, the village drunk, the smith, the gossip, the grizzled hunter, the traveling. Oh, and then we have, I guess, wanderers, the traveling minstrel, the outrider or outlaws, the cutthroat, the scoundrel, the vulgar bandit, and then persons at arms, not man at arms, but persons at arms. The aspiring squire, the swashbuckler, the sellsword, and then those of the faith, the consecrated cavalier, the demon abjurer, the devoted healer, and then magicians, the conjurer of flames, the wandering thaumaturge, or the wide-eyed apprentice. So all these are kind of kits, or, you know, they're classes, they're little bundles that you can grab if you want to just, you're not sure what you want to be, or, you know, you just want to get in the game. You know, maybe as if you're doing kind of a pre-gen situation, you can just hand these out or pick them, which is cool. And then we have witches, a recluse, a priest, or a powermonger witch. And then you can have strange creatures like the household hob, the river beauty, or the skin changer. Oh, we have more. Nobility, the courtier, the monarch, or the hope of the realm. And then monsters and gods. A god of the forest, of dread vampire, or resplendent dragon. That's kind of scary. I'm interested in how these... So I guess these are all kits, right? So in the dread vampire, let's say, or maybe I'll look at the god of the forest, something a little bit different. So we have their theme kits are God Spirit, Primal Earth Shaper, Otherworldly Realm. And then they choose one of Magic Seeds, Irksome Pixie. Magic Seeds is a relic, Irksome Pixie as a companion, or Lord of the Hunt as a mastery. And in their backpack, they have Army of Living Trees, Voices Upon the Wind, Draft of Mind Freeing. But, you know, remember, they only have one, like, it's interesting, right? Because they have these crazy sounding powers, but they're not any more powerful. They're not any stronger than anyone else's 3 powers. Like, they're not stronger in a sense than the courtier's powers of conspirator, landed noble, and rumormonger. They're all of power level 1. And I mean, I guess you could say the scope is different. Presumably, someone who's a primal earth shaper can add that power to do things, maybe of a bigger scope. But I guess it's really going to depend on the kind of game you're running ultimately. Circumstance. All right, we're getting a lot in the weeds into the tags, which I'm going to skip. So they have kits for these also, where you can pick particular circumstances, like being a fugitive, or a noble, or an alderperson, or a tavern brawler, right? So you can pick those, or you can go through the questionnaire, which is cool, but I'm going to skip. Same thing for devotion. They basically have a whole bunches of these, a whole bunch of oats. So this is the kind of stuff that I don't have for myself, that I feel like I'm like, oh man, I really like the way they've laid this out with this stuff. The general store. I'm guessing that armor also has tags. So armor tags improve your reaction when you lessen the consequences of attacks. And then you can decide as a group if you want to just have them as different armors as flavor, or I guess if they have various levels of efficacy. And we have a whole bunch of other tags. So, basically everything, right? Everything is kind of tags. Fellowship is your group, I presume. And you have a fellowship theme. Fellowship theme is shared. Fellowship power tags are single use. Okay, and you can only get them back. So it's kind of like you can spend them, but then you only get them back at kind of a rest or some kind of rest and rehabilitation sort of thing. Karko says, wouldn't you make up the tags yourself? Guess they can serve as inspiration. I mean, I would imagine you can. I think they even say you can. But I think it's wise of them to put them in. Yes, you can make them up yourself. But if they have a bunch, which clearly they do, this makes it a little bit easier. I mean, I guess you could argue that you end up, maybe falling into a pattern that they're giving you. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good to give a bunch. But yeah, I mean, I would, even if I were running this game, I would certainly say, here, use these. But if you've got a tag that speaks to you, we talk about it. I mean, that's like kind of, let's do it all as a session 0 kind of thing where we'll make our characters. We can come up with the tags. But I think it helps because those tags are also a little bit of descriptors of what you're doing or, who you are. So that's good. All right, so we got some fellowship creation stuff. And then I think that's about that. We can go through the fellowship questions, but we also have some kits for fellowship. Fellowship for the amulet, powerful household, protectors against the dark, tavern buddies, itinerant sellswords, or fortune hunters. So just for one of these, the fellowship of the amulet has tags, hidden campsites, travel the land, the mysterious wizard, a map of the realm, hiding from foes, sage advice, the last hope, shoulder the burden, and the amulet. And weaknesses of growing mistrust, easily sidetracked, the Dark Lord's forces, and audience with a king. I wonder how audience with a king is a negative. I don't know. How to play. Weaving the tale, action, and drama. Let's see. This chapter explains the rules of the game from the perspective of the players. Okay. I kind of feel like we got a good sense of how to play. So we get the kind of the game loop. So the narrator is going to establish what's going on. You're going to take actions and we go through the consequences. And then you may be able to do a reaction. And then we're going to loop back around. In each scene, the heroes attempt to reach their goals by overcoming what stands in their way, which are challenges. Challenges act by making threats against your hero during the establish, which is when you set the scene, and if not, stop by delivering consequences. Challenges are overcome by taking actions. And you can have scenes with low or no stakes. You have someone managing the spotlight, taking action. What do you do? This is all cool. I mean, I'm kind of glancing over it because obviously I'm looking this kind of from more the GM direction, and also, I'm not looking at it as someone who's new to playing games, so I get the concept of taking actions. If that concept is, if you're new to the game or new to games in general, then probably is worth reading that. But to be the most efficient use of time, I'm gonna skip. Done with my Spindrift. On to some. Oh man, all the ice is already melted. I was going to say iced water, but no, it's just water. Just water for the working man. Okay. So I really, this idea of the quick, the detailed, the simple, the quick, and the detailed, it's a pretty good way of breaking it down. It's not, I think it's probably pretty analogous to the different kinds of modes of play we see in, say, an OSR type game where you might be in initiative mode where you're kind of in moment to moment versus exploration mode like you might do in a dungeon where it's kind of 10-minute turns versus what you might be doing in the wilderness or in town where your actions might take a lot of time. Now, the interesting thing here is they're not breaking it out in terms of time, but they are breaking it out in terms of how granular you're getting. So you can, they are kind of, I think, at least I felt like there's a sense of kind of zooming in on the action, but they're not specifically laying out in terms of time, which means that you could feel free, presumably you could handle the bandits with a simple thing if you felt like it was something Simple, or you could conversely, something that one game might have, they want to resolve it using the simple way. You might want to get into the detail, and you can kind of flip back and forth. Croco gives me the tag, no ice. Yeah. Or I guess there's the weakness, which is lukewarm. Lukewarm water weakness. Ugh. I do not love lukewarm water. So we have example actions, right? Climbing up a ledge, taming a wild beast, asking about a room or a tavern, and they give some sample power tags that might help. So, whoops. Oh man, why do I keep doing that? Such as sociable for rumors, sociable, exchange stories or carousing. Climbing a ledge might be athletic, rock climber, climbing, having a climbing pick. Reckless might be a weakness that you could invoke there if you wanted to, that kind of thing. So we're just getting some kind of examples, bending powers on the fence. I mean, all this stuff is pretty darn, I feel like is pretty darn self-explanatory, which is good. I feel like having read through that, I feel pretty good about if I had to run one, I feel like I would kind of get it. And I think that's a positive. Not to say that I would get it right. I would, of course, would make a crap ton of mistakes and whatnot, but I feel like I can get the idea of the tags, the idea of applying positive tags to the power tags positively, and the weaknesses or other things negatively. I think that makes sense. Something that I've mentioned about the One Ring. What I appreciate is the fixed target numbers. Just make it very easy for a GM. In this case, for the players in GM, you your target is 10. You got 10, was it 10, whatever, 10, 9, 6, 10, 8, 6, whatever. Yeah, forget whatever it is for the Powered by the Apocalypse. I think 6 or less is what the fail. I don't remember exactly what it is. Like, was it 10? Is it 10, 8, 6 maybe? Anyway, hey, Ian. So you've got that going. So once you kind of get that and have it written down, you kind of got it. And like I said, when I play the One Ring, I like it because if I'm running the One Ring, I just have to say, hey, make this roll, make a test for this. And okay, I'm going to make an exploration test or a travel roll using, travel, whatever. Okay. They just they can just roll the dice and tell me whether they succeed and if there are any extra successes, essentially. Oh, I see. I succeeded with 3 successes. Okay, great. I don't need to do the math on my part. The math is off there for them. And because you're doing the same math over and over again, you'll just kind of get the hang of it. You can do it. And I can just concentrate on the consequences side of it. And then I think for the hero, if I'm on the player side, I think once I get that understanding of how the game works, which is basically you want to use your tags, get as many positive tags as you can to juice up your roll. You're going to do that. And, I think you can talk it out in terms of what you feel like the stakes maybe. Like, what are the consequences? Sometimes it's going to be pretty self-evident. If you run up to some bandits and you're going to try to do something and it fails, you're probably going to get some retaliation by the bandits. Other things might be less clear, but you can talk it out. And then you just kind of, rinse and repeat. You just get in that kind of loop of, okay, and then we keep going and then keep going and keep going. So I feel pretty good about that. And I think that's a sign that they did a good job with that tutorial. Because I felt like that tutorial up front, I think it definitely, especially because it's just the nature of it. They're calling things tags, and everything's a tags. You can see the phrase tags used all over again, all over the place. Very easy to just kind of lose track. Tags. But I think seeing it in terms of here's how a situation would go. We're going to do it like a choose your own adventure. So you can kind of sort of play your way through a little bit, and you can kind of read it over and over again. And it shows the different ways of resolving things and positive tags, negative tags, how you do it. It's like, oh, okay. I think that really did give me a good, I think I got this, don't quiz me, but I feel pretty good. And I'm sure there's some nuances that they're going to throw in the mix. So you can burn tags. You may voluntarily scratch one and only one power or story tag that is directly helpful to your action to gain 3 power. You cannot burn a single-use tag for power. And I guess if you burn it, it's gone. And then you can push your luck. You can accept a consequence to achieve a great success in a quick action. I guess it's only in a quick action. If you're in a oh, I see. So some things you can only do in the different modes. So only in push your luck seems like it's only for quick actions. You can trade power, but you can only do it in detailed action. You can help. You can act in concert. You can sacrifice. Now we get some sense of consequences. You're blocked. There's a complication. You're exposed. You get ill tidings. There's a new challenge. You can have a yes, but, or you can get some negative effects. And then we have some examples of those. Story tags. So during play, a hero may gain and interact with story tags, which are impermanent tags. Unlike your hero's power weakness tags, they can be either helpful or hindering depending on the situation, and they come and go more easily. Story tags are recorded on tracking cards or in the backpack section. And you might have a tag that's a jug of oil, because maybe you're delivering it somewhere, or I don't know, something else. Hey, Ian. Let's see. You can use story tags. Story tags can be invoked in an action is either helping or hindering. You can burn them for power. You can create or scratch a story tag by spending 2 power. The narrator can create or scratch story tags at any point, including during player's action, although the adding of a negative story tag or the unwanted removal of a story tag is usually done as consequences. You can lessen story tag consequences by spending 2 power per tag. And then we have some themes, a good longbow, because you lost your longbow because of the bandits, a magic lantern, etc., etc. And we have those statuses. And then we have a note here on stopping the death spiral. Normally, a status can affect an action that will increase it. For example, a humiliated character may be more vulnerable to further ridicule, reducing their ability to lessen incoming humiliated statuses. Similarly, being wounded may detract from the character's fighting, leading to further consequences and injuries. This logic makes statuses more grave because taking any status already puts the receiver, hero, or challenge on a path to defeat. In turn, this can make conflict more fast-paced and the outlook of the story more grim, an effect known as the death spiral. Deciding together with the group, the narrator may wish to slow things down and stop the death spiral by categorically not allowing statuses to apply to actions that would increase them. This can create a more relaxed setting where taking a status doesn't spell defeat and characters have time to turn things around. And this is kind of like, do you want to play this, and this is not what they're saying, but do you want to play this a D&D way? If you're thinking about damage anyway, right? Because in D&D, your hero with 1 hit point is just as potent as a hero with 100, same hero with 100 hit points. Obviously, the hero with 1 hit point is in dire straits, but their actions aren't penalized. They're not taking minus, because they lost 99 hit points before this moment. They don't lose minus 99 in the next attack or anything like that. Their swings are just as good. In games like this, though, you start getting those negative statuses, it means it's harder to get over the hump, which means it's just more likely, like I said, you just kind of can spiral downhill. And so now their approach to this is, as a group, you just decide. Because 1 is definitely more gritty, right? The people who say, well, look, of course, I hit you with my Warhammer. You should be injured to the point of not being as effective a fighter as you were before I hit you, because that's why I'm hitting you for. So that totally makes sense. And yeah, it does. In our minds, it does. Yeah, you knock a guy in their arm and potentially break a bone or really give them a wound, an injury. Yeah, they're going to be less effective. That totally makes sense for a realism thing. but that heroic part. You lose that kind of heroic part, which is like you see in the movies often enough, or even in stories like Conan, where Conan gets beaten down, but he's never quite beaten down enough that when he gets his moment and finds his blade, slips the chains that have bound him or does whatever, that can still do Conan stuff. And if you want to be like that, or like they say, just a little bit more of a relaxed approach, you can decide as a group that, you may be getting, what do they say, stunned, but that stunned isn't going to affect your when you're doing something, it's not going to affect you that way. You'll still get knocked out if you get stunned enough, but the stunning is not going to be a negative towards your actions. Now, I think in these kind of games, I don't find it as bad in some other ones. Like, because my game has a similar kind of death spiral type thing, but I always feel like you can always try to reach out and get more out of your environment or get your friends or do that. And it's kind of heightens the tension and whatnot, but I feel like you still have choices. And one of the choices is, well, stop doing what you're doing because you're getting beat the heck up. But I appreciate them giving the advice of, hey, just don't. You don't want to, then don't do it. Kind of thing. But I kind of feel like you're so expansive with these powers and you're rolling a 2d6. You can have, you can be stunned too, but you had 4 power to start where you're okay. Granted, you're not +4 on your rolls, but you're +2. That's still a pretty good. You got pretty good odds still. But I suppose those statuses can creep up on you. Let's see, limits. Yeah, that's the number, but it's basically before they're overcome. Challenges have different limits for different ways in which they can be overcome. So essentially a wild boar, it might have a limit of 4 for just getting hurt. You can scare it also with a 4. Ooh, what's bonded for? I guess you've managed to bond with the animal. Some challenges are immune to some statuses. For example, the spirit of pestilence may be immune to physical harm or hurt. Okay. Progress limits can be used to track an impending turning point in the narrative. All right. Advanced uses of statuses. Polar statuses, compelling statuses, defensive statuses. And then we have the different mights. Characters in your story can vary greatly in size, social standing, or sheer power. A dragon is mightier than a farmer, a renowned swordsman is mightier than the village blacksmith, and a secret society of builders is mightier than a single builder. One that can achieve things the other can only dream of, and yet even the lowliest peasant can trick the greatest sorcerer. Well, that was Willow, right? Similarly, some tasks demand more might than others. Whittling a spoon from a piece of wood does not require as much skill as crafting a magical ring, and climbing over a low stone wall cannot be compared to climbing a towering sheer mountain cliff with one's bare hands. So it's a tool for emphasizing power gaps. Like when counting power, might relies on the narrator's interpretation of the situation, the hero's theme tags, the challenge's mighty aspects. The following guidelines help the narrator and heroes envision what might can be in your game. But ultimately, might is a tool in the hands of the narrator to signal to the heroes, now you're in over your heads, or now your ability can shine. So you can be imperiled or favored. And in doing so, the narrator emphasizes different power levels in your story. So you can determine might. There are 3 broad categories of might. Origin, adventure, and greatness, which we heard before. Got that. Might can apply in different aspects, domains, or matters, including, got all that. So a hero's might in the aspects covered by their adventure and greatness themes, and in all other matters, they are of origin level. A hero is mighty in the aspects covered by their adventure and greatness themes, and in all other matters, they are of origin level. The king of the Riverlands, greatness and influence, when attacked by an assassin in his bedchambers, is just a man. Origin, and fighting, unless the king happens to have a relevant mighty theme, such as veteran of many battles. Okay. Examples of hero might aspects. So the village blacksmith. It's the village smith, so it would be blacksmith. Strong as an ox, heart of gold, heirloom longsword, and they're at their origin level. So you have kind of your origin level and these other ones. That's pretty cool. So yeah, so the king is just a man. So you surprise in his bedchambers, he's just a guy. But if he had this mighty aspect, like they were saying there, but it also means that a king in his court, where he's in his full, kingship, he has this might that he has as a ruler of legend would come to the fore. So that's cool. I like that. A challenge's mighty aspects are determined by the narrator or listed in the challenge profile. An archmage can possess all-powerful magic, aka greatness and magic. A giant is mighty big, adventure in size. While a scheming royal advisor can be difficult to outsmart, adventure in cunning. In all other aspects, the challenge is at origin level. Wait, they haven't said what origin level is. Origin just level 1? What is origin level? What is that? I guess it's just that baseline? I really like to see, hopefully they'll have an example. The aspects in which a hero or a challenge has an adventure or greatness might level are called their mighty aspects. You don't have to invoke tags from your adventure or greatness themes in an action to be considered mighty in those fields. Having the theme is enough. A fellowship theme of adventure or greatness might can also affect a hero's actions in the aspects to which it applies. A fellowship of a renowned theater troupe can have an exceptional reputation, adventure, and influence. This is where things get a little confusing with the wording, because you have these different mights, one of which is adventure, one of which is origin, one of which is greatness. So basically they're saying like adventure in whatever. They're saying you have that kind of adventure might level in this. But the wording, I feel like it's a little bit, at least to me, it's a little bit confusing. Okay, so action and actions might. An action is mighty if it requires exceptional, which is to say the adventure. Those are the adventure might, or their world shaping, which is of the greatness might, ability to accomplish. For example, building a boat fit for 12 people, which would be like an adventure level in crafting, is a mighty endeavor due to the size and the expertise required. Fighting a militia platoon, adventure in numbers, is an exceptional feat for a lone ordinary swordsman, while fighting an entire army, greatness in numbers, all lonesome, is nothing short of legendary. So I think it goes origin. I'm guessing they haven't really said it outright to my mind, but I guess the levels are, origin, adventure, and then greatness. So there's kind of a pyramid with origin at the bottom, adventure in the middle, greatness at the top. I think that's right. So going back to the examples of hero might aspects, a sellsword might be a formidable weapons master. That is adventure level in fighting. They were forged in war, which is origin in a war zone. Contract work, which is adventure in profession. Respected leader, adventure in leadership. Everything else is origin. A heavy-hearted monarch might have monarch or dominion, which is greatness in the political power. An impregnable stronghold, which is a possession, which has a greatness in battle. Has a band of swords as a companion, which is adventure level, and prophetic visions, which is an origin level. Okay, I do find that I'm sure eventually I will wrap my brain around those, and they'll just read as kind of second nature to me. But you just got to keep in mind this idea of this kind of different types, levels of might. Adventure being a level, greatness being a level. Greatness to me reads fine. It's the adventure part where I have to keep feeling like origin level also is fine. I feel like, okay, it's your origin. Though the way it says origin level, I guess because I'm still probably fixated on numbers where I want to say, oh, origin level 1, origin. No, it's just at origin, right? It's like what you were kind of born with. Shell Shack Bow. This is Legend in the Mist. Legend in the Mist from Son of Oak Game Studios. We're pretty deep into Volume 1, The Hero. Using might in action. When a hero describes their action, the narrator can decide to compare the hero's might with the might required for the action in the relevant aspect. If the two might levels match, which is the most common, the hero is neither imperiled nor favored. If your hero is imperiled when they try a task beyond their might, your hero is favored when they try a task below their might. So if you're imperiled, so imagine you're using something that's at origin level, which is that lowest level. Then you're doing something that the GM, or I guess, sorry, the narrator has said is at that next level adventure. Then you would say you're imperiled. However, if you were at adventure and it was just a regular origin level challenge, you would be favored. So what happens? If you're imperiled, let's see. Okay, hold on. A hero taking an action, one level of might greater than they possess, origin versus adventure, or adventure versus greatness, is taking an imperiled action. They either fail, if you're using simple resolution, or lose 3 power, in addition to all other counted tags and statuses. So basically, they're kind of taking a -3 penalty, basically, is what it is. The penalty does not apply to reactions. Instead, if the hero takes consequences from a source one level of might greater than they, the narrator increases the effects of the consequences by 3 status tiers or 1 tag. In the extreme case, the hero is 2 levels below what's needed. They are extremely imperiled and they lose 6 power, and again, it just gets worse. On the flip side, if they're favored, they gain 3 power. Or, 6 power if they're extremely favored. So that makes pretty good sense. Might as a detriment. Oh, this is interesting. Might is not always advantageous. One's might can be turned against them, whether a challenger or a hero. The narrator can decide that a mighty aspect acts as a hindrance for an action in a different aspect. This often happens when the mighty aspect becomes confining, limiting, or interfering, or if the goal of your action seems to be beneath you, irrelevant, or ill-fitting of your place considering your might. For example, an ogre's size can work against them when trying to hide or manipulate tiny objects. A king's political life may mean they don't have much time for cooking or for noticing the ongoings of the servants. I think we kind of get what they're going. So you can, your mighty aspects can be turned against you. Okay. And then they have some examples of that. They have some examples of imperiled and favored actions. It's fine. And then now we get a more detailed version of might that's called scale. The narrator may choose to use a more detailed version of might, also called scale. Using this method, the might required for an action is counted based on the action's difficulty and the scale of its effect, such as the area it covers or the number of people it includes, to come up with a more exact figure for the might required for an action. Use the scale table as a guidance. Pick an area, size, or number description that best describes the action's scope. This might value is subtracted from the action's power. So basically, you could say, like, oh, it's going to affect a whole bunch of people, so it's going to have a scale of 1, which means it's going to be harder to do. That makes sense. Whew. All right, let me take a drink here. Oh. When the fellowship stops to recover their strength or admire the view in between scenes of travel, drama, and adventure, the flow of scenes pauses for a while and you take a break. A camping scene. In this scene, you describe what each hero is doing around camp in broad strokes, although you may zoom in on interesting details. I think people really like this stuff. I've never really messed around with having kind of like these campfire scenes, but people do like campfire scenes, and this seems to be campfire scenes. I'm not going to really read through these just because I'm trying to kind of going on to 2 hours here. I want to kind of see. I want to see more, not Seymour. S-E-E space M-O-R-E, not S-E-Y-M-O-R-E, as in Seymour, feed me. Okay, the hero's journey, hero development, improving a theme, quests and transformation. We kind of looked at this already through the other stuff they posted, but so we can just see some examples of evolved themes. So strong as an ox as a trait can become the Dalish strongman, or the village healer can become the follower of the goddess. The dragon can become the angler. What? Oh, I see, because you can kind of change what you want. So the dragon who wants to make the coastal cities bow to them can decide to become an angler, living the simpler life. Or the relic, the Sword of Thunder, can become the destiny, the avenger of the land. You can also replace, gain a quintessence. Ooh, what is a quintessence? As you sail the ebb and flow of your life journey, a unique quality is formed within you, a quality that defines you and remains constant within you forevermore, however you may change going forward. And then I guess these are quintessences. I'm not going to read them all, but I'll read Canny One. Once per session, when the narrator delivers consequences or activates a challenge's ability, you may treat them as a threat instead. Take the spotlight and take a single action, even if you just acted. Your action must address the threat and could even nullify it. That's pretty cool. All right. And there's a bunch. Now we get the Secret of Magique. Magic actions, magic tags, power tags. Examples of meta magic tags: etch names instead of speaking, substitute ingredients difficult to banish. Or those are two separate ones. Substitute ingredients, difficult to banish. And then magic style tags can be earth-shaking diatribe, magic, gentle as a doe, draw power from my grief. All right. So cool. We have some magical quests, consequences of magical actions. Do they have any ideas of, let me see. Oh, you can ask some questions. I wonder if they don't see any, are they going to have spells? I guess I'm wondering. So I guess you come up with them. What specific magical ability, why do I keep doing that? Maneuver or spell to use regularly. Describe a single focused magical spell or ability, or magic ability or spell. These narrow tags clearly define a single ability you're capable of and can rely on. Well, I'd love to see an example of, I guess. Oh, here we go. Examples of specific ability tags. True Name of the North Wind, Salve of Detoxification, Consume a Soul. Okay, well, what does that do for you, consuming a soul? A magical quest. Collateral damage. So consequences, collateral damage. Exposure, expenditure, harm, yada, yada, yada. Cool stuff. We got alchemy and herbalism. Fey patronage. Land shaping. Wait, what does Fey patronage do? Magic of the fair folk, unexpected and fickle. Mark of the Fey. Origin, magic of the household hob. Repel invaders, perform household chores, light an uncanny cooking fire, cure a malady, the house familiar, friendly hearth, endure harsh weather, become invisible, hide secrets. Land shaping. These are all cool. Shape shifting. Ooh, what about shape shifting? Let's see. Oh, I see. You can. So all these stuff, you're basically, again, everything is tags, right? Tags and tags and tags. Adventure level powers, werewolf form. So, well, here we go. So I see. So your origin becomes, once becomes beast dreamer, dream into wild animals, personal spirit animal, feral attack, wake myself up, animal senses, full moon nights, sedative, stealthy movement, animal kinship. And then your the kind of negative tags: dream into domesticated animals, disturbed sleep, animal-like waking behavior, people are talking. And then on the adventure level, you can get to doppelganger, forgettable face, cosmetic changes, read their memories, time to study the victim, close contact with the victim, sudden attack, quick lie, camouflaging skin. And then negatives: very large or small bodies, not enough time with them, intense scrutiny, hated and reviled. Another one is werewolf form: enormous strength, tooth and claw, unrelenting hunter, acute senses, terrifying howl, true wolf form, cover the night, pack fighting, a few trusted friends. Negatives: fear of fire, needs the pack, involuntary shift, humans, fear of wolves. And then finally, greatness level, elemental body, magma flow, sweeping gale, dazzling light, defensive shift, craft unusual forms, sea elemental energies, gigantic body, adapt to danger, unflinching calm. I'm guessing you don't pick all of those, but you're going to pick, like, what, 2 and 1? And the negatives, mixing elements, chaotic environments, dissolve body, emotional outbursts. Bursting out of the outbursts. And then we have sorcery. Oh, and we also have spirit binding. Oh, they got a lot going on. Witchcraft. And then we get the appendices. Did we really do it? Did I do it? Bam! I did it. I just mean getting through the core book. It seems like a really cool system. I like it. I like it very much. I mean, tags is a very, on the one hand, the nomenclature very simple of tags. And I like how everything, I do appreciate a system that's just like, look, we got this way of doing things. And once you learn that, everything kind of works that way. I do kind of appreciate that. I like the idiosyncrasies of having a bunch of different systems, but I do kind of feel like ultimately you can have a universal mechanic, one that works, right? I think that's kind of the key. You can have some universal mechanics that don't quite fit everything, and it can feel awkward to put things in certain boxes. And it feels like you're fighting the mechanic. It's got, we got to do a one, and I don't think that like D20, let's say D20 versus a D20 versus a target number. Not that it necessarily is this, but I think sometimes you might feel like, man, I wish this used a different mechanic, right? I kind of feel like this thing they've got with the tags, obviously I haven't played it. I would like to play it. I would like to try it. I feel like I could run it. I feel like I could definitely enjoy playing in it. I feel like the tags makes a lot of sense. Part of it when I'm reading it sometimes is just because you're repeating tags all the time. Make it feel like a little bit overload of the term, but that's just me reading it. I think it plays pretty well. In terms of nomenclature, it definitely will. I could see having some trouble. It would just take me a minute to kind of get the okay, origin, adventure, greatness. But even now I feel like, okay, I pretty much think I've got that down. If I put the books away and came back to it next week, I probably would have to kind of spend a minute or two refiguring that out. But I like the way they constructed the game. It's definitely, just reading this has given me some ideas like, oh man, I should really think about this element of what I'm doing. So that's always something where I feel like that's a good sign. Like when you read something, you're like, oh, that's, because half the time when I'm reading books, I'm like, oh man, what can I take? What is this book teaching me that I can use elsewhere? I'm like, oh, this has got some stuff. I definitely think it's a system that could play a lot of different sorts of adventures if that's what you want to do. It is on the net, right? This is if it's not, this has a lot of, I would say, Powered by the Apocalypse, heritage DNA, if you will, in that it's very much focused. The mechanic is that 2d6, the way the players are rolling all the dice, the way that essentially adversaries and things are really more consequences of what the players are doing. And that's something you have to wrap your mind around. I've never had the opportunity to really try, say, Dungeon World or Apocalypse World to see how that works, in which I know I struggled with it a bit. That one time I played, I forget what it was. It was just, you just have to get your mind in a different place. And if you're coming from that kind of game, well, then you're going to be all set. If you're coming from D&D or kind of OSR land, something like that, it might take you some time to wrap your brain around it. And some people may not like it. Some people like that there's a certain independence to other forces, whereas everything's going to be living off of the player actions, which I think it really is going to how you do it. Because I think it is easier in some ways, because then if you're looking at the consequences type, is this, whereas the players do things as they do things with these mixed successes or failures, consequences happen. Those consequences move the other pieces on the board. It means that you don't have to make, as you're the GM, you don't have to make a whole bunch of rolls behind the scenes. You can just look consequence. Oh, they're sneaking and they failed their sneaking and there's a negative consequence hanging there. Well, clearly that's the guards have been alerted and they're on their way or something. Okay, great. I don't have to make a bunch more rolls. I don't have to do what I might do in an OSR game, which is, roll to see if they heard it. Okay, roll to see how far away they are. Okay, roll. It's a different kind of game. Now, the flip side is that some of that concrete details that you might like, you're not going to have. You're not going to have, well, they're exactly this far away or this much. And some of that, you're going to be playing it more, loosey-goosey a little bit, but I think that's fine, right? I think it's fine. Art obviously is really nice. All the pictures and illustrations, I think it's well laid out. I like the way they organize things. I really like that tutorial at the front. This is a way to kind of get into the mix before they go in all the defining stuff. And I really felt like that, and even I didn't even read it through all the way, but I did feel like, oh, okay, reading through that kind of example of play, if you will, in the choose your own adventure style, meant that when I got to the definitional stuff, I was a little bit more prepped for it. There's obviously stuff I skipped. There's no way I could get through this in the time I got through it without skipping a bunch of stuff since I did. And we haven't gotten to the narrator stuff, but I feel like just with this, I get a good sense of what the game is. And maybe in another stream, maybe we'll let to see. I'll wait for some feedback, see if going through the narrator side, which looks like, as I'm just kind of just doing briefly flipping through, is going to have a bunch of stuff about, monster, just all the kind of dungeon mastery narrator side stuff. But I'm guessing this really has all the kind of mechanical things, or most of the mechanical things that you're going to need to worry about. I haven't read through any other reviews. I haven't seen any actual plays. I could definitely see running this at some point. It's given me some new things that I want to look at for myself, which, as I said before, is always like, oh, wow, like that's cool. Like, and that's, again, like I look at it from my standpoint, like, oh, this has some neat ideas in it. This has some neat ideas. And yeah, it does. So I'm really intrigued with this. I know some other folks in my neck of the woods have the game, so maybe I'll be able to get into a game of it at some point, or maybe run it on an off night or something. It might be fun to set things up in this game and see how it just set up a scenario. Maybe I'll do that next time. Maybe if there's interest, maybe I'll put up a poll or something. We can kind of set up a scenario or I guess a quest. I mean, the interesting thing too is, which I really like for, at least for kind of an ongoing thing, is that I feel like what you're really going to be doing is you're going to be getting your cast of characters, these characters you're playing, getting that fellowship, and then you're really going to be building off of their goals and the fellowship goal and all that stuff. So what's interesting is, it seems like if I was going to make a scenario or make a quest, I kind of need to make some characters and a fellowship, just to know, like, well, who are the audience for this? I mean, I suppose I could pick some tags. I guess I'm wondering if someone were to make, say, third-party adventures for Legend in the Mist, like, what does that look like? Because I guess you just got to pick and say, hey, these tags, I guess you got to have something like, well, if you're coming for these tags, this might be it, and what they're kind of doing here. Or if they're coming from these tags, these might be doing it, whatever. It's going to be interesting. But I think this would play really well. To me, I feel like once I kind of get this internalized, I feel like this is a good kind of lower prep system. I think you can kind of go a little bit on the lower prep. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks to Son of Oak for when I sent out a request, because I reached out to them. I will put this I'll mark it on YouTube as, as sponsored. But, they sent it to me and, didn't ask me to do anything. Obviously, I didn't tell them I was going to do anything. I didn't even inform them when I was going to be streaming this, and I did not know what I was going to do because I hadn't read it. So, Croco says, fellowship tags, 4 hobbits, 1 elf, 1 dwarf, 2 humans, and a Gandalf. I mean, that might be a fun exercise too. Is maybe that would be fun. Like, what would the Lord of the Rings, what would the Fellowship of the Ring look like in terms of Legend in the Mist characters and tags? That would be interesting. That would be fun. All right, folks. Well, anybody have any last words? Any last things? I'm trying to think. I don't think I have much else. I think it seems really, just like I said, certainly really well put together. I feel like they really go, I don't want to say above and beyond, but I feel like they really give you everything you're going to need. And it's one of those things I think they could have, and maybe because it's a Kickstarter, I don't know. I don't know if this has gone through any. I'm not really aware of the development process, because I think in like a basic form of this could be in a lot smaller of a package. But I think they've done a good job of justifying the size of these books, because they give you a lot. I think there is some repetition, but I think it's a good sort of repetition where you know, being able to have the tutorial and then being able to kind of run through stuff and then kind of give you a little bit, but sort of pulling back and able to organize things in a way that I think makes it a pretty good, easy read. I mean, there was a couple times where I was stumbling over things, but that's going to be as much me just trying to wrap my head around a whole bunch of new words, phrases, and things than anything else. Like I said, the naming's a little bit off, and that one page, I know, I mean, you know, and this, I'm reaching here, right? Because that one page where it had, it's really where, I think it's really the one thing where I would say, like, I feel like it was, excuse me, hiccups, maybe a little bit clunky is this, wait, where is it? It was, yeah, it was this and the powers. Because I remember I did have to kind of look at this might, and I'm like, what is, because you have theme types, but then it's also might. It's like, what? That was a little bit clunky for me, but I think, you know, you just keep reading and then you go, okay, I get, because I get what they meant from the type was, hey, this is what you're getting. To me anyway, it was like, okay, what you start with, that's your origin. Then it's like, okay, what you're getting on your adventures. And then greatness was a little bit fuzzy to me, but I kind of had this thing, like it's probably that kind of end game kind of stuff. Like, okay, you know, this is that kind of top of the mountain, which is kind of what it is. But then when they start using it as a power level, you know, a level, that kind of might level, it's a little bit like, all right, like it just read weird to me. But I think you kind of figure that out, and it's not a big deal at all. So I'll, you know, I will leave it up. Maybe I'll put a poll up, you know, let me know in comments here, there, everywhere, if you want to see more Legend in the Mist. But this was a really fun read. And with that, enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you may end up watching or listening to this. Whew, game on, everybody.